Hello you, I'm Ini, and this video is for Monster Week. But first, what's Monster Week? Well, it's an annual community event created and organized by GND and Pointia to talk about TTRPG, and this year's theme is Dragon. So today my video is a showcase for some stat block from a project of mine, a world building project that I'm adapting to fit to D&D. And with some homebrewing, I made a little setting from which the dragons I'm gonna show you are from. But first, wait, I lied a bit. Because, you see, dragons in this universe are not exactly what D&D would call a dragon. But whatever, because what D&D call this or that is not really important. Instead, in this world, dragons refer to a big family. Basically, reptiles don't exist and are replaced by dragons. And a lot of these monsters are able to manipulate a magic energy called the mana. And using it to overcome realistic constraints, like shoot fire, control the elements, or just fly. So we're going to different locations to see 3 different dragons, one made for smaller encounters and 2 boss monsters. For the first one, let's travel to a place named the Poi Poi Archipelago to observe some Diabolongs. The slung dragons live in groups on the flooded plain of the archipelago. They are clumsy on land but good swimmers, and thanks to their mastery over mana, they can fly and shoot water. So how to adapt this one? Well, first, they have low speed to call back to their clumsiness. But their swimming speed is quite better, and to reflect their flying prowess, they don't trigger opportunity attack when flying. And being fragile, they get low HP and low armor class. Their only good stats are constitution, like most monsters, dexterity, and wisdom, because they know how to use mana. This usage of mana makes them spellcasters. For example, one spell is a piercing shot of water to attack multiple targets, or a constant water beam dealing damage to everything that passes through, so player can tank the beam for one another or find cover. Lastly, Diabolons have an emergency escape. By creating winds and dealing damage around them, they start to fly. To reflect their agility in the air, they gain both fly speed and AC. In sum, a dragon that likes to hit and run around, encouraging adventurers to be creative to catch them, and also to avoid the water beams. And we touch on what I think make great monsters. A clear focus on their gameplay to create engaging fights, where players are faced with a problem they'll need to solve. I find that sending your players against monsters who have their own goal in the fight, I mean mechanical one, enhance this encounter. And Diabolong's design as a group encounter is made to push the cooperation inside the party. But what do you say about a more aggressive dragon? Maybe when trying to slip through the front line to catch the fragile mages and ranged adventurers hidden behind? To see that, let's go to the Musa mountain to meet her. And she's Olka, an Aitareud, a wyvern species of solitary predators who like to stalk their prey, jumping on them at the first occasion, with an electrified hug to paralyze. For her, I lean even more on the hyper-focus build, with multiple tools to help her in her goal, executing low HP target and then focusing on what's still alive. So, what does she have to help her? Well, she's fast, and has a lot of AC to dodge attacks. But to compensate, she has low HP. Being an animal, she has low intelligence and charisma. Her strength is bad, but she carries both good wisdom and dexterity. Now, because all of her playstyle revolve around one attack, I need to explain it before the rest. Bolt Hug, as it's called, makes her leap forward, Foxy style, to try and grapple an enemy. If the target is indeed grappled, they risk to be paralyzed. Then only if the target is both grappled and paralyzed, Olpia will land a powerful blow, which is automatically a critical hit, since the target is paralyzed. Yes, it might seem complicated like that, but picture it like a branching diagram. First, did you get hit by the hug? Then, did you fail the strength saving? If yes, do you also fail the constitution check and get paralyzed? If you fail each time, you'll get damaged. A lot. But it's really hard to fail all these conditions, especially with your low strength to begin with. But now you might be wondering, what are those boxes below them? Well, it's when her passive traits comes in. Her traits are passive, and activate only if she successfully lands an attack, meaning you took damage from something like Boltug. The first one is related to the electricity she can store. When touching someone, the target risks to take a shock, and see their strength reduced by 1 for a moment. Maybe you're starting to see the danger here. High strength builds are not 100% safe from her. And so, the second one says that on a successful attack, she can choose to disengage and release the target, or attack again. The more people there are around, the more likely she'll choose to disengage. So she's designed to be a dangerous encounter, especially to mages and ranged characters, asking the party to protect its weakest members. And yes, she's a lot to take in, but it's the type of tactical encounter I personally like. Plus mixing some strategy with all the dice rolls will surely cause some fun moments. But monster that hop around being a nightmare for those poor ranged adventurers. Let's search for a last dragon, one more imposing. Let's go to the icy depths of the sea to meet Tialimet, a Valneitar from the Leviathan family, but this one shows incredible mastery over the water. And this massive boy is full of HP, a lot of stat and a bunch of immunities. He's a Titan class, and like every other monster of this class, it's supposed to be a tough encounter, maybe a final one for some. But Titans generally lack interesting features in their fight. So to solve that, I think about a secondary goal inside the fight. Because you see, Tialimet is a spellcaster, and a lot of his power comes from his remaining horn. The other goal of the fight, besides killing him, of course, is to deal enough damage to the horn and break it. Otherwise, he can copy spell he cast for free. Another thing to keep in mind for the fight is his trait, called Manaborn, that allows him to use one of 4 points to cast a spell as a bonus action. And you don't want to see multiple spells being copied. For instance, one spell can conjure waves that push everything away. It can also stun and deal additional damage to the creature caught by the wave if they smash into something else. Another one is a shot of water, just like the Diabolon but bigger, exploding on the final impact. Or a vacuum-like ability to pull everyone in range to be chomped by a melee attack. But you see, the fan doesn't stop here. His 2 legendary actions are here to reinforce his water-bending abilities, letting him cast boosted version of Control Water plus Weather and Tsunami. So, even if Tialimet is designed for high-level parties, lower levels can still fight him, maybe in a repel mission. And if the party is victorious, beware if you haven't broke the horn, cause there is one final surprise, a death rattle. If Tialimet dies without losing the horn, he will cast Control Weather and Water to create chaos around him, and use all the unused points from Manaborn to cast one spell per point. So the party better be breaking that horn if they want to avoid further casualties. And that concludes this video. You probably already figured it out, but it's my first time doing this, and this video wasn't planned at all. But Monster Week got announced, and I already had some stat block laying around, so I jumped on the occasion to make something. I'm no expert to making homebrew, so I hope the design weren't too bloated. And maybe you found something interesting in what I cooked? Well, anyway, if you're interested to see more, you can find all my links below, or I'll see you in a future video about my world building project this time. But who knows, I might make more D&D. It was fun. Until then, take care and goodbye.